Hello, everyone. I'm 𝘨𝑥𝑺, your host for today's Swine It podcast. And today I have John Htoo with me. John Htoo is a Director of Technical Consultation for Evonik. John, how are you today?
Hi, good morning, Laura. I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your time.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you here today. John, our audience may not be familiar with you, so would you mind giving a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yes, my name is John Htoo. I'm currently Director Technical Consultancy at Evonik Animal Nutrition. I'm based in Hanang, which is our headquarters. It's been quite a kind of journey, for me. As you can see me, I'm originally from Myanmar, which is also called Burma, and I grew up in a pretty much agricultural area in a small city. Also, when I was still attending high school, back then, my parents had a small-scale farms producing some pigs and also poultry. And as being the oldest son in the family, I helped with my parents, feeding these pigs and poultry. So I already had some background in animal production. After high school, I got the opportunity to go abroad. So I wanted to help the people, the farmers. As I said, around 70% or more of the people are very much in agriculture business. So I selected, like Larenstein International Agricultural College to study. So I specialized on animal production, and it was for me really a big opportunity. It's it's like, wow, it's a new world, open out into a lot of knowledge and books, and so I was very much eager to learn. And then as a part of the project for my dissertation for the BAgrSc degree, I got the chance to go to ITCPH, which is International Training Center on Pig Husbandry in Lipa City in the Philippines. So I learned a lot of hands-on knowledge, also practical skills in pig production. And then wanted to really proceed further to learn more in animal nutrition. So as I explained, we have both crop production and animal science, and I wanted to specialize in animal production or animal nutrition. And I went to Göttingen University in Germany for my master, and also for the, we call it a doctorate degree in agriculture science, which is like, we can also call like PhD. And I specialize on monogastric animal nutrition. After that, I still wanted to learn more. So I went all the way to Canada from Germany as a postdoc with Dr. 𝘕𝘂𝘃𝑍𝑜𝑢𝑟. Maybe I think a lot of swine nutritionists know him. He did a lot of work in amino acid nutrition at that time. And then also I was with him for 2 years, and then I also worked with Dr. 𝘠𝑍𝑜𝑢𝑟 for 1 year. So after 3 years, I believe that I'm prepared now to go into feed industry. So I joined Evonik then. So after all this, learning as a swine research manager, so I moved from Canada back to Germany because it's our headquarters, and I was responsible for swine research activities it's a global position, and we work with all the leading universities worldwide. After, it was in 2007, after 11 years, I took up another position, which is more into bridging from the research to the producer to the customer. So it's a technical director and swine nutrition. It was in 2018. And in 2020, I also took up another additional roles to support technical support on our gut health solution products and services for the customer. So it's been quite a journey. So really from the starting until now, it's been like 25 years or so. It's quite a journey. Yeah.
It is quite a journey, but you've had lots of wonderful experiences along the way, it sounds like. So as you've gone through your career for those 25 years and even today in your role where you're looking at global pig production, what are some main challenges that you're seeing in the pork industry?
We can say that we always have, some challenges for the pork or animal industry. And obviously, the disease outbreak of this African swine fever has really damaged the impact, and also other challenges in, like the high feed cost and availability of raw materials and so on. But from my perspective, I would like to address three main challenges that I think is quite current, or it's a trend, global trends. The first one is the demand, pretty much, coming from the consumer side, antibiotics free products in terms of for human health concern. So it started obviously in Europe in 2006 with the ban of antibiotic growth promoters, and it's also now the consumer understand it very well. So it's spreading. There is a higher increased demand of AGP-free products, meat and eggs and so on. So also it's like in also 2018, also in Asia, and it's spreading. So the downside of it is that our animals, our pigs, are having, we call it suboptimal immune status. So really, it's not. It has been quite a while, but still there is a need to find, a solution, nutritional solutions or strategies to tackle that. Produce our animals, especially for example for wing pigs, to solve their post-winter diarrhea problems. And another one is also the growing awareness on the environmental pollution. Also, there is producers not only in Europe but also in other countries have to cope with reduced nitrogen and phosphorus excretion from their operations. Also, we had last year another extended regulation in terms of nitrogen excretion for the livestock producer in Germany, for example. And the third one, I would address that also there are producers have an issue that although they have improved genetics, but their pigs do not meet the genetic potentials due to some challenges in terms of immune status, or also heat stress, and also this, again, the nutritional knowledge and so on. So there is also, I see the potential to really improve in this area as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think you're talking about some very current topics that we do hear quite regularly in the industry. And so when you think about those three areas and you think about the research that you're involved in today, because as you mentioned, you're working with universities as well as internal research, what are some key areas of research that you think we should be focusing on to address those problems?
We know these challenges, these problems, and also we would like to support, to tackle these challenges for the producers, for our customers also. And also we always, whatever we do in terms of research, we check whether this is valuable, meaningful for the producer, for the customer. And as I mentioned, the first one to tackle AGP-free feeding, and this is to improve the gut health and also the immune status of the animals. We have been doing research in the amino acid nutrition. We know there's some key amino acid like methionine, threonine, and tryptophan play roles in immune function. And we have actually collaborated with 4 famous universities from Canada, United States, and also Australia to look at the, if the amino acid requirements are changing depending on the immune status. So we also use like challenge model, like LPS, or even with E. coli or salmonella challenge. Or also we use like sanitary challenges, like keeping the pigs in a clean condition or in a dirty condition. And so, but really in the last over a decade or so, we generated these findings, and also has been published. So this is and also along that line, we also look at, the low crude protein diets. We also, we are focusing on our sustainability in terms of production of livestock production. And so we have done a lot of research on looking at not only reducing the crude protein, but also to understand the interaction. And also more recently, we also determined the effects of gut health products like probiotics. And we also look at the interaction of reducing crude protein and also adding these probiotics. So these are the areas that we have been working. And also to really apply these concepts, we need to have accurate understanding of amino acid requirement or ratios. We call it ideal ratios. So we have done amino acid, the ratios of optimal ratios, the next limiting amino acid. So for swine, we have, I believe, quite accurate estimate for lysine requirements, but for the next limiting amino acid, methionine plus cysteine, threonine, tryptophan, we can see there's a range of, or quite a variations comparing, for example, Europe or those values used in other continents. So also we are, running experiment to determine these ratios of next limiting amino acid. For now, we have looked at up to the next limiting amino acid, the branching amino acid. So, so we know valine is the next limiting amino acid after tryptophan and isoleucine. Yeah. So these are some of the topics that we have been working on, in our group.
Yeah, I think that's great because again, as we continue as well here, right, feed costs are rising and we're trying to use more amino acids, and there are more and more available to us in the United States. And so, we are asking those questions today about branch chain amino acid ratios and what is optimal. And we have the ability with isoleucine now to start to explore that in a little bit more detail. So I think that work is very relevant and very useful for the industry as a whole.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that you also mentioned in there was, in addition to ideal amino acid ratios, there is discussion about dynamic amino acid ratios. And can you talk a little bit about what the difference is and what we should be looking at when we think about dynamic amino acid ratios?
Yes, we call it this dynamic amino acid ratios because traditionally the ideal ratios is more or less constant. First we have to know the lysine requirement and these ideal ratios of a limiting amino acid, like a fixed ratio. And also we know very well that very early publication from Dr. Baker, Chung and Baker. So we have been using that. But as I mentioned earlier, some key amino acids are involved in enhancing the immune status or gut health. For example, threonine is important, in the mucin secretion, and so when we use fiber-rich ingredients, wheat milling, soybean hulls, or even DDGS, we know that the ratios, not the absolute requirement of lysine per se, but the ratios of threonine is increased. And also is true for other amino acid, as I explained earlier. Tryptophan ratios increase under immune challenge condition because of its roles in chirorenin pathway, and also methionine as a precursor for cysteine, and cysteine is required for glutathione, which is intercellular antioxidant. So it's very important to understand that we should adjust the ratios of these amino acids according to the immune status of the pigs we're producing. And just for example, more than 10 years back, we had a discussion. Among nutritionists also, we see that the tryptophan to lysine ratios, there is really difference. Those that are used in the nutrition in North America compared with those in Europe, even today, right? So tryptophan for weaned pigs is like 21-22%, and in North America is lower. So the question, like what could be the reason? So we have done a series of experiments, for example, at different locations, but we did not include antibiotics growth promoter. And then we really see a very nice response. But the other producing areas where using AGPs and also the health status is very high, and then so the needs of tryptophan requirement is lower. So these are so we call this dynamic amino acid ratios to better adapt with the production, specific producer, whether they have this kind of immune challenge or not. And also we really see that in some more tropical countries, adjusting these ratios really help to improve not only the gut health and reducing diarrhea, but also we observe increased growth performance of the pigs. And also with heat stress, and in many countries, pigs are produced under heat stress condition with the ambient temperature of higher than 30, 31 degrees Celsius, and also even in temperate countries during summer months, it's going to be quite hot. Also, we see that by adjusting some of these amino acids, for example, methionine or arginine, or even simply reducing crude protein content in the diet, so that help and for the pigs to cope, to reduce heat production, and they can increase the feed intake somewhat, and then again adding additional or higher levels of amino acid using this crystalline or synthetic amino acid. We observe also improve gain-to-feed ratios and also everyday ligand of the pigs. So we are supporting, the producer with this adjusting, optimizing the dynamic amino acid ratios.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because sometimes as nutritionists, I won't say that we forget, but we're focused on low cost and trying to optimize performance. But if you're formulating for a lot of producers, it's pretty common to just have one diet going out because that's more efficient for our feed mill. But the dynamic amino acid ratios, they're really important to think about. And, I know, for example, for me in the summer months, I'll increase the tryptophan ratio to help with heat stress as well. Right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
interesting.
Yeah, we try to think about it, but I think it's good to continue to remind people that, particularly at weaning, when we're talking about that adjustment, that we need to remember that maybe we need to shift those ratios beyond NRC or genetic company recommendations to line up with the pig's needs. So that's very interesting.
Indeed, yes.
So one of the things that you mentioned in there was the low protein diets. And we've been talking about lower crude protein diets in the United States probably for the last 10 years. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, as more and more feed grade amino acids become available to us, we're using more and more of those in our diets. But can you talk a little bit about what you view when you talk about low protein diets and sustainability?
Yes, this is a very important topic. It's getting more and more important. So as we speak, the low crude protein or low protein diets as such is not a new concept. It has been quite a while, even 2-3 decades. The earlier research has been done in Europe, also pretty much triggered by availability of these crystalline or feed grade amino acid, but also to find solutions without EGP, and also Europe in some countries in a intensive producing area, the land is limited, so there is also a stricter regulations. Per definition, I would say low crude protein diet is not just simply reducing the crude protein content of the diet, but we have to still supply adequate amount of amino acid, essential amino acid, and also non-essential amino acid in the diet. So it's advanced nutritional knowledge is needed. For example, to do that, we need to understand what is the accurate amino acid requirement, right? So the good thing is that when we look back the last 1.5 decades, a lot of knowledge has been created compared with 2 decades ago in terms of amino acid requirement, lysine, and also when we look back at that time, 10 years back, lysine requirements, there were some variations, and so NRC in 1998, and now we have a new NRC. So when we look at the lysine requirement, it's a very good agreement, and also these ratios. So we need to use the best available nutritional concept, like based on the SID, standardized ilia digestible amino acid concept, and also for pigs, for swine, we should use the net energy system because it is the most accurate system that is currently available. It's not perfect. We still need to, improve more, especially on the fiber side of net energy estimation. But using these really help to maintain optimum performance while we are feeding the low crude protein diets. And why is that low protein has got a lot of attention and interest is that it has really multiple benefits for not only for the producers, but also for the environment, for the human society as a whole. Just to name it, it also very consistent when we also have done some nitrogen balance studies and also reviewing all the available literature. We see that reducing dietary crude protein of 1 percentage point, for example, say for nursery pigs that are from 20 to 19% crude protein, we see that on average 9% reduction in nitrogen excretion, total nitrogen excretion, and roughly 12% ammonia emission is reduced, and 2 to 3% drinking water is less needed for the pigs. So it means a lot for, especially in the tropical countries, and also like those intensive producing areas. And surely it's not that straightforward, as I explained. Sometimes we see a drop in performance with low crude protein diets, or affecting the carcass characteristic of the finishing pigs, for example. And a lot of time we see that one or more of the next limiting amino acid become limiting as we reducing, for example, crude protein, for example, lowering the inclusion level of soybean meal, and we're adding the next limiting amino acid. Depends on how many we are using, right? So tryptophan, also valine or isoleucine, and typically valine isoleucine can become next limiting, and which is the reason. So we have to pay attention to understand these. But if we ask the question, how should we, optimize this, or how low we can lower dietary crude proteins? I think that we can look at two scenarios. The first one is if we're going to reduce dietary crude protein very much depends on where we are, right? How many amino acids we are using. And if we reduce like 1 to 2%, in most cases it's already quite good if we check all the ideal ratios of 10 essential amino acid ratios. And also pay attention on the net, preferably using on net energy system. So we are quite good. But in some situation, when we lower the crude protein in a great extent, like we call it extremely low crude protein diets, where we reduce soybean inclusion like from 20 to 5%, or really even removing soybean meal. Under this condition, we have to remember to also look at not only 10 essential amino acids, but also non-essential amino acid can become limiting. And we know that the pigs can do de novo synthesis of non-essential amino acid, but they still need the nitrogen, right, in the diet. So the question is that then how should we do that? Because we don't have a good understanding on requirement of non-essential amino acid. So one pretty simple approach is to look at the lysine to crude protein ratios in our pigs diet. Right? If we look at on the SID, lysine to crude protein ratio, based on, it may not be perfect, but based on what we observe, we shouldn't increase that ratios higher than 6.9%, for example, 6.9. Yes, or on a total lysine to crude protein, roughly 7.4%. If it is like higher than that, like 8% also, then pretty sure that one or more amino acid are limiting in the diets. So we are supporting this with the producers, when they want to lower crude protein. So a lot of questions how to do, and also other questions like how they have doubt about the use of this feed-grade amino acid. Yeah, so how can we use it, or what? Maybe we will see the the reduced pig production or performance and so on. So these are all very. It's really, when we look at it, it's quite straightforward, but it's really I would say very high levels of nutrition is needed. We need to apply all concept. Yeah, and also we shouldn't underestimate the analytic. Yeah, so because when we use the table value, we see quite some variations of nutrient content in raw materials, and so we also support with the analyzed amino acid concentrations of raw materials. So we have the NIR-based methodology for the producer, for example.
And that's very interesting. I had not heard the lysine to crude protein ratio before. So SID lysine to crude protein shouldn't be higher than 6.8. Total lysine to crude protein shouldn't be more than 7.4. So I think that's actually very interesting. And I think you addressed exactly some of the questions and concerns that we're seeing here as we lower the diets down in crude protein, particularly here where we're using some byproducts like dry distillers grains. We'll have diets and finishing where we may not have soybean meal at all. And so to keep those other ratios in mind beyond just the straight amino acid ratios, I think are really important and very valuable for our audience to think about.
Yes, indeed. And as you touch on the feeding DDGS, I would like to just briefly mention that also in a high protein DDGS, which we have currently, are very high in crude protein, higher than before, and also the concentration of branching amino acids higher. So very interesting. Again, maybe more than 6-7 years ago or so, we have really in very good discussion with nutritionists from Canada and also from Europe on what is the optimum tryptophan to lysine ratios if we are feeding the pigs with a diet containing more than 30% DDGS. And we see that when we see that there is improved performance if we increase the tryptophan to lysine ratios at least 19 or higher. Before, because the ratio in the past used to be quite low as sometimes 16, 17%, depends. And it's also because the branching amino acid, especially leucine, extra leucine can cause the branching amino acid antagonism or imbalance. And this directly impact on the feed intake. And so we need to, again, check the ratios of leucine to lysine. So roughly if the leucine to lysine ratio is like higher than 140, 150%, and we should be careful and adjust the isoleucine to lysine ratios. This is also one of the early study. We're trying to answer why is there the difference in isoleucine ratio. Some are using 55, 54, and some are 60. And so we see that with the use of spray-drying blood cells, which is very high in leucine content. So by adding the ratios of isoleucine from 50 to 60 help to increase feed intake of the pigs and also maintain performance. And it's also there is interaction with this branching amino acid with tryptophan because they are competing to get into from the blood to the brain. And so if we boost the tryptophan a bit in the diet, and also it helps the pigs to eat, to avoid reducing feed intake. So these are the very interesting. More recent research has been done also at some university in the United States, and it's very current topics, and we have a better understanding. This is something which I'm very pleased about it.
Yes, yeah, that's a very good comment on being aware of the branched chain amino acid ratios relative to lysine. Certainly we see it here too, as we'll start to see more vices in the barn, such as tail biting and so forth, if we're not careful to keep those ratios balanced. So that's a very good conversation. Could actually be another whole podcast actually about branched chain amino acids. So I think that's a great conversation.
I'm always glad to talk about amino acids.
Yes. One of the other things that you had mentioned in your topics of concern was really about gut health. And I know this is something that you and your group was very passionate about. So could you talk just briefly about what you envision when you talk about holistic gut health?
Yes, this is another very important topics, and which is also very current. We know that especially in young animals, for pigs after weaning, we have an issue with the post-weaning diarrhea, which is pretty much a global issue. So gut health is very complex, obviously. The digestive tract is not only needed for digestion, absorption, nutrients, but it's also a barrier from pathogens reaching into the blood pools, into the body. At the same time, it's the organs which the highest amount of antibodies. So very important key immune organs, we can say it of the animals. And also it is, I would call it a dwelling place for all these, trillions of microbes, gut microbiota. And this balance of gut microbiota is very important, and they can also crosstalk, with an immune system regulating the health of the animal. So we also, as I mentioned earlier, is very important not only produce the pork, but also we have to pay attention of the well-being of the animals, and also for the safe, high quality meat, which is really, we see this as a very, very important, also producing in a sustainable way. So we used to also in pretty much across the globe, we use the antibiotics to solve that, to control this post-weaning diarrhea issue. And now there is a growing interest to not to use or reduce use of antibiotics. So we are looking at now research how we can tackle that problems. Also, obviously, there are other companies and producers, they are also developing the nutritional concepts. So at Evonik, when we call this holistic gut health concept, we really look at the whole production chain of the swine. For example, we are supporting with sourcing the quality raw material, which is very important. If we don't feed the animals with quality feed, or is contaminated with like mycotoxin or other anti-nutritional factors, and we cannot achieve the healthy animals. So we start with analytic and using based on analytic based feed formulation, and also using all this more precision nutrition. So using the SID concept, accurate estimation of these amino acid levels and also net energy. This is the basic. And then the next step is to lower the dietary crude protein content using this crystalline amino acid, because we see that there is a direct positive effect on reducing production of high gut fermentation. And also we see reduction in diarrhea incident. And currently we also look at the application of probiotics. So we have some bacillus-based probiotics also for swine. And very interesting that when we add supplement that probiotic in the low crude protein diet, we see there is a synergistic effect, meaning it improve growth performance and improve feed conversion ratios, and also really clearly seeing the reduction in this diarrhea incident. So we are currently exploring furthermore, also adding with other functional ingredients like functional fibers, and also later on we will also look at other products like organic acid and phytogenic. This is we understand and we believe that using just one product will have a less chance to really, to maintain the performance. So we have to use this, we call it holistic concept of all these analytic knowledge, technical knowledge, and also with this functional products.
Very interesting. One of the last few questions I want to ask you, it's really around common misunderstandings or areas where, if you look at the swine industry, that you think are our next steps, right? What's our opportunity for improvement? Do you have a couple of those in mind after all of this discussion today?
Sure, I can give a few of them. So one of the situations that I observe also traveling to some countries in Asia, for example, the understanding on the amino acid requirements and ratios. As you mentioned earlier, of course, we are focusing on reducing the feed cost, but sometimes it's not in the right direction. For example, they are reducing crude protein because it's becoming like a trend. It's like suggesting, by the feed industry, but then they ignore the ratios of the next limited amino acid. For example, from valine, isoleucine are really low. and sometimes also imbalance is an issue. Like there were some time that lysine was, the price of lysine, HCl, for example, was quite low. So they are, for example, some nutritionists adding that more higher lysine, but others are really low. So what I want to say is that we should really remember that, this body protein synthesis is all or nothing, right? I mean, so this is really simple, but we should remember that it's amino acid. This is really the foundation of body protein synthesis. We're just supplying extra amount, but one is below or missing, then the pigs will not perform. It's just a loss. So that would be the one of the areas that need to consider or pay attention. And the next one, I would like to also mention that very interesting that there are some kinds of assumption or understanding on the use of synthetic or feed amino acid. Whatever you call it, maybe from the old schools, that, hey, you cannot add, for example, L-lysine more than 5 or even lower, 5 kilogram per tons of feed. And then it's like some nutrition really have a concern on that. Hey, we cannot do, why, how can we do that? How can we lower it? So we should take the whole picture. So that may be right at a given situation where either you don't use any other amino acid or only few of them, right? But if we have now 6 or 5, 6 crystalline amino acid, then we can still increase the inclusions of, for example, L-lysine in the diet, and the pigs are perfectly fine. And we have done a couple of, we call it a validation tries to validate, to check that. And we even remove soybean meal. We did a, really stepwise reduction of soybean meal, and we remove completely out the soybean meal from the grower, 25 kilo all the way to slaughter. And we were amazed that by maintaining all these amino acid ratios, the pigs don't reduce, feed intake, and they're perfectly fine, and the carcass parameter is also not affected. So this is just, I would like to take this opportunity to explain that we need to better understand the amino acid requirement and the ratios. And then the last point would be then touching on this challenges. Although it's maybe a kind of new or recent on this, the ratios of some functional amino acid, because the research has really has increased the last 10 years or so, but really there is really by adjusting these ratios, not ignoring, like, if we use, depends on using which raw material, is it fiber rich or AGP free feeding or not. So we should consider to adjust these ratios of some of these key amino acid to maintain the optimal performance of the pigs.
I think those are great suggestions, and certainly the misunderstanding around how much crystalline amino acid can be added to the feed. Even now when I formulate diets, every once in a while I'll look at that and go, oh, can I really add that much lysine? But then when you go through the ratios, you're like, yeah, everything is fine. But we've been taught that for so long. You're right. It's learning that new concept of trusting our science and using it to the best of our ability. So it's a very good point. So as we kind of wrap up our discussion, before I ask the 3 famous questions, do you have any last comments or things that you would like our audience to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, thanks for this question. I would like to mention that pig production has evolved a lot. We have seen, affecting very quickly. If something happened like disease outbreak in other parts of the world, it's affecting globally. And at the same time, we have increased a lot of knowledge, really not similar to the genetic, right? But also from the swine nutrition side, we know a lot knowledge and all nutrient, not only amino acid and energy. So I would like to just make comment that we should consider these and try to apply, and also the sustainability aspect. We have to not only address it, but really walk the talk to really to grow our business in every area, not only the companies or the producers, because the population is growing. In 2050, there will be, the prediction is that there will be 2 more billion so to feed the growing populations. And so we need to optimize the efficiency and also consider to give the chance to our children, the young generation, that they can also produce in a sustainable way. So, and there are knowledge, information there, and we should optimize that and to care for the global the climate, and that would be my last suggestion.
Yes, and I think you proved some very good points with that, with sustainability and the use of pure feed-grade amino acids, and in terms of their ability to reduce our water usage and of course nitrogen content for ground application. So I think that's an excellent point and summary to our conversation today. So as we conclude today, we do like to ask our guest speaker a few questions, as you know. One of the first questions that we like to ask is, what's your favorite swine book? What's your go-to resource?
There are a few books that I like, but if it is as a favorite, I would pick the book, famous book, Swine Nutrition, edited by Dr. Lewis and Dr. Sultan in 2000. And so for me, this is like the textbook or the guidebook. When I need to look up some topics, I would use that. I have it in my office, so that will be the book for me.
Yes, that's a very good book. I have that one on my shelf as well.
Yeah.
Is there a current book that you're reading, or a favorite book that you would suggest to our audience to pick up and read?
Yes, also it's very hard, very difficult questions, but as a personal book of favorite, or that the one is touching a lot, very current, is a book called The River of Lost Footsteps. So it's The River of Lost Footsteps by Tan Minh Tan, which is a Burmese author. But for me, this book, as I said, I'm from originally from Burma, but I have left more than 25 years. But that book really gave not only the history, but tell the long history of where our ancestor, ancient time, where we came from, like back 3,000-4,000 years ago until today, and also he, in the conclusion, he addressed that it's still not yet ending. So a lot of issues, challenges we are still facing, and it's also currently this, unfortunately, the situation. And so we really need good and wise leaders for each country, and this is so for me, this is important. Maybe not for others, but if you have the chance, I would suggest, so really give the connection of all different culture. Yeah. At that time, also people from Europe also came to Asia, for example, and also a lot of trade in all India, China, all these countries, and of course the Second World War, and so it really had to understand the culture of this country, I would say. So again, this is my personal favorite. Yeah.
Good. That's very good. Well, the last question we like to ask is, when you think of someone who's successful as a swine professional, what characteristics set them apart from others?
I believe a good foundation and also this perseverance is very important. And we need to have motivation. We have to have our objective, our aim. Also, not just for me at the time, I was really very eager to learn all the new knowledge, new things which I did not have back then in my country. So, and this then we build up the foundation in your area, and also like motivation, and also another thing is very important to have networking. Yeah, the world is really changing. We need to adapt. We have to be prepared to face the changes, and also networking in a way we cannot live in a silo, we call it. We need to interact, exchange information, knowledge, and this is where we grow. And then a step each time. So each time we cannot stop. Oh, I for example, I know this and I can stop. No, it's not that way. This really, we need to keep moving. And this is how I believe that we can be successful in our career.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Well, John, again, I appreciate your time today. If our audience has any questions for you, do you have a contact that you would like to offer today?
Yes, the best will be via email address. So my email address is John Htoo, so JOHN.HTOO@𝘕𝑣onic.com. So please feel free to send a message. I will be more than happy to answer. And also, I would like to express my thanks, appreciation for your time and for this opportunity of good discussion. Laura, thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I've appreciated it and enjoyed it as well. So we wish you all the best and take care.
Thank you very much.
Imagine if, with a few key concepts, you could have the potential to create a massive positive impact by bringing from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars for swine producers. Join us on this small group and go to the next level of swine nutrition on this 7-week-long elite online training in applied swine nutrition and feeding by myself and my world-class invited speakers. Additionally, you enjoy an exclusive community to exchange ideas. Go now to www.eliteswinenutritionist.com.